Over 2,000 years ago, in China, there lived a young man called Wan Xiliang and his young, beautiful sweetheart, Menjiang girl. They loved each other very much and looked forward to getting married and living happily ever after. But just 3 days after their wedding, a terrible thing happened. The Emperor of China was building a great wall to keep out his enemies and protect his people. He needed many thousands of men to work for him, and often he had to force them to work for him. Wan Xiliang was one of those men. Though newly married, he was dragged away from Menjiang girl to build the Great Wall. Weeks turned to months. Days after days. Menjiang girl had no news about her husband. One winter night, she dreamed her husband was coming towards her. Help! It's so cold here. There is no feelings in my toes and fingers. I've not eaten for 3 days and 3 nights. I am dying. Help! Help! She wakes up with her tears on her cheeks. The dream overwhelmed her with the sadness. She quickly made her husband the cotton-padded clothes and warm winter shoes. But who could take those to him? It was so far to the Great Wall. She pondered. Finally, she decided that she herself to take the shoes and the clothes to her husband. It was extremely hard for her to walk all by herself, especially since she had never been away from home in all her life, and she did not know the way. She asked the directions, forded the small streams, crossed the big rivers, climbed big mountains and small hills. Finally, she reached the Great Wall. How excited she was when she caught the side of the wall. It meandered like a huge serpent over the mountains. She desperately walked along the wall, trying to find her husband. And soon she discovered that he died a long time ago because of the unbearable torture, where he feared his body was buried under the Great Wall. Hearing this tragic news, Menjiang fainted. Some of the builders tried to revive her, but it was a long time before she awoke. When she did, she burst into a flood of tears and cried for many days. So some of the toilers cried with her. So bitter was her lament, so thrill her cries. Suddenly, the length of over 200 miles of the Great Wall came to crumbling down, and her husband's body was revealed for all to see. People people cried out to one another in amazement. It was Menjiang! It was Menjiang! It was Menjiang! Her tears caused the Great Wall came to crumble. When Emperor heard how Menjiang brought the part of his Great Wall came down, he immediately went to see for himself what kind of a person she was. And he found she was as beautiful as a heaven being. So he asked her to become his concubine. Menjiang, who hated so deeply of his cruel ways, of course wouldn't consent to this. However, she thought a ruse would serve her purpose better than frankness. So she tried to trick him. She pretended to be friendly. Yes, I will be yours if you do 3 things for me. The emperor then asked what these 3 things were. Menjiang said, "First, you bury my husband in a golden coffin with silver lid on it. Second, all your ministers and generals wear the mourning clothes and attend his funeral. Third, Emperor, yourself attend his funeral and wearing the deep mourning clothes like his son would do." By being so taken her beauty, the emperor consented to her request at once. So everything was arranged accordingly. In the funeral procession, the emperor walked closely behind the coffin with his generals and ministers. The emperor was looking forward to the enjoyment that the new beautiful concubine would give to him. But Menjiang, when she saw her husband was probably buried, bowed low in front of his tomb in homage, and cried bitterly for a long time. Suddenly, she jumped into the river beside the tomb. The emperor was very angry and yelled for Menjiang, but splash, she had gone. To all his attendants, the emperor shouted, "Pull her up from the water! Pull her up from the water!" But before they could seize her, Menjiang turned into a beautiful silvery fish, swam gracefully out of the sight, deep, deep down into the green-blue water, and disappeared. People like the story of Menjiang girl. Someone composed a song to tell the story. It sings, 正月隔离来是新春，家家户户点红灯，人家夫妻团圆日，门将女的 丈夫去造长城。
Once upon a time, in the deep, luscious lands of the Serengeti, was a village right in the outskirts. A vibrant community of people lived there in harmony with the animals. In this community was a magic drum. No one really understood where this magic drum came from. All they knew was that once it played, you couldn't help but tap your feet, bob your head, and sway your hips from left to right, right to left. It didn't matter what mood you were in, you just couldn't help yourself. So all it was for the people of this community was that they had a magic drum. Now this magic drum belonged to an old man who lived in the furthest, most quiet part of the village. They understood that this man was the custodian of the drum. And so it was that every day he would bring the drum into the market and play it for the people. No one really noticed him. They just noticed the music once it started to play. Every single day, when the sky was at its highest and hottest, he would sit in the same seat and start to play the drum. And like any other day, the same thing would happen. People would start to tap their feet, bob their heads, and sway their hips. On this particular day, the old man did the same thing. Came into the market, sat in his usual seat, and no one paid him no mind. On the left were women trading. They had vegetables and produce from their land that they were trading for clothes and salt. On the right were men trying to keep a steer from running off. And right in front of him was an old man with a large precious stone that he looked at up in the sky. He played his usual beats, and before long, the joy and calm permeated the marketplace. Every time the old man came to the market, there was this lovely energy that enveloped everyone, and business flourished. He played so hard that sweat dripped from his forehead all the way down into his clothes, but nobody cared. They could hear the beat, and they were happy. On this particular day, instead of picking up his drum and heading home, he stood up to speak. Jambo, he started, but nobody heard him. He cleared his throat. Jambo. Again, only the kids in front of him heard him. Then a small boy screamed, "The old man is talking! The old man is talking!" Everybody looked at him. He fumbled. Thank you, young man. We don't have all day, a man shouted. What do you have to say? Well, as you can see, I'm getting really old, and it's been getting harder and harder for me to make it to the market lately. I think it's time that we talked about the custodianship of the drum and making sure that the skills do not die with me. Skills, said one man. What skills? This is a magic drum. If anything happens to you, I'm sure we'll find a way for this music to continue playing. We don't really need you. No, actually, the drum needs... Old man, we've heard enough. And before he could finish his sentence, everyone had turned back to their usual activities. Sad and defeated, the old man dragged the drum back to his home. For the rest of the week, he did his best to turn back into the marketplace and play the drum as usual. But the following week, he was not to be seen, and nobody seemed to care. Week 2, he wasn't there again, and again, nobody really cared. Week 3, a few people started to ask questions. It's been a while since we've seen the old man and the drum, but nobody cared to go ask about him. Then on the 4th week, everyone realized something was off. They were fighting a lot, nobody could reach an agreement, and business wasn't doing really well. "We need to get the drum back," said the small boy Simba. "Every time the drum is here, we're all happy and business is great. We need to get the old drum. I'll go to the old man's house and find out what is going on." The little boy walked over to the old man's hut and found little chickens prancing about his yard. "Old man, we need the old drum. People are not as happy as they used to be. Where have you been?" "I've not been well, Simba. I did say that before. I'm not feeling very well and cannot make it anymore." "Well, why don't you give me the drum and I'll play it?" "Have you ever played a drum, Simba?" the old man asked. "Well, no, but it is a magic drum, right? Anybody can play it." The old man chuckled. "Oh well, if that is the case, you can have the drum. I'll bring it to you." The old man passed on the drum to Simba, and Simba dragged it into the marketplace, sat in the same seat that the old man sat, and started to play the drum. Thud, thud, thud. Nothing. He tried again. Thud, thud, thud. Nothing. It just did not sound anything like the old man would. "You must be doing it wrong," his father said. "Here, I'll play it." Thud, 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 thud. "No, it sounds nothing like it should." Everybody decided to take a turn. "I'll play it. No, I'll play it. No, I'll play it. I've played a drum before." Everybody tried, but none of them were anywhere near as good as they'd heard the drum play before. This went on for quite a while until it hit Simba. It's the old man, isn't it? He is the magic. The old man? No way! Have you seen how dirty he is? I know, right? His nails. He's got dirt in his nails. There's no way that man is magical. But then, none of us can play the drum, Simba said. Surely, it must be the old man. We've all tried, but none of us could get anywhere as near good as he can play it. It must be the old man. I'm going to take the drum back to him, and I'm going to ask him what is going on. So Simba drags the drum back to the old man's hut. He stood by the door. "You should have told me the truth, old man." "What truth?" the old man asked. "About the drum. I said it was magic, and you laughed at me. You knew it wasn't true." "Of course I did," said the old man. "I wasn't going to spoil the fun for myself. After all, it was a good laugh for me. I only wish I'd been at the market watching you all try to play the magic drum." "So what is it, old man? How is it that none of us can play the drums?" "Well, the truth is, young man, that this is a skill, one that was passed on from generation to generation in this community. Drums are very important to us. They signified danger when we knew enemies were coming, and they also make us really happy. It's very important that before I pass on, that I teach everyone or someone how to play this drum. I will learn how to play, Simba said. Me too, said someone, and they looked back, and behind them was pretty much the whole village. We all want to learn how to play the drum. We get it now. There is no magic in the drum. We need to learn the skill. It's important to us. The old man came out slowly from the hut and looked. Right there in his yard was pretty much everyone from the village. For the first time in his life, everyone was there for him. We're really sorry, old man. We took you for granted, didn't we? I should have been honest and not kept up the story about a magic drum. But everyone seemed to appreciate that more, and I really did like just having myself and the space all nice and quiet and people leaving me alone. Well, but I understand now that it is really important that we pass on the skill. And so it is that for another generation, that the skill of drum playing in this village lived on.